Welcome to this episode of DIY3DTech.com. In this episode, we're going to take a look at taking apart, and it's going to be this part in particular, which is actually a piece to one of my drones, and replicating it. Now, I've done a couple videos in Inkscape on doing this, and this is going to be similar. Although this is a little bit more complex shape object per se, because most of the other pieces I've done have been pretty much flat objects. Now this is a three-dimensional piece, and we're going to do a couple things a little bit differently in Inkscape and in Tinkercad to get this part to come out. So tell you what, let's head over to the computer, take a look at this, and start the design process. And then after the design process, we'll actually print it out and we'll see how it compares. So let's head over to the computer. Okay, we're in the computer now, and one of the things that I want to share is the use of layers over here inside of Inkscape to create an object. So in prior episodes of Inkscape tutorials, I showed you guys how you create an object basically in one layer. In this episode, we're going to really look at how to use multiple layers to create a more complex object. So one of the first things I did was import the image here, and this is what you see in the background. Whoops. Let me make sure I turn off the right one. Now I've turned down the opacity of this so it's a little bit light, and so again I can really see the darker lines through it. Then what I did is I created a base layer, and I drew out my part around that. And again I did some measuring of the actual motor mount itself, and from this I was able to kind of do some rough estimates and overlay the various pieces on top of the actual motor mount itself. Now you see I'm a little bit proud here, and I did that on purpose because again for 3D printing it, this was a little bit narrow of a area to really 3D print, so I had to go a little bit larger, but I wanted to keep the overall form the same and the hole alignments the same. So I did do a little bit of modifications here for this. Now the next thing I did is I set up a grid, and I noticed the color that I used is red. So I know that this is not going to be a portion of it, but it's going to be used to set up my various pieces. And what I did is I used this square to set up these objects here. And then from this is I built upon, I needed to do another pocketing operation. So you see the pocketing here and here, and the pocketings are in green, and so this will be another layer which we'll import into Tinkercad, and I'll show you guys that in a minute. And then finally I create my final set of pockets here in blue. And so again, everything except the grid is going to get sent out to a layer. So long story short, what you do to save out a layer is you turn off the little eyes over here as you see in the layer pane, and then what you can do is actually go to layer, and then if you just click here layers, it'll show this panel over here. And again, you can work with the different layers. So what you want to do is turn off the different layers, and then come up here and do File, save a copy, and then what you want to do is select plain SVGA, sorry. So I've already saved out my layers over here. As you see, I've got layer 1, layer 2, and layer 3. And what I did is the base is layer 1, pocket 1 is layer 2, and pocket 2 is layer 3. So I've saved those out as SVGA files in Inkscape. Now what we're going to do is I'm going to go up here to a blank art pad in Tinkercad, and then what I'm going to do is import my first layer. So I'm going to choose layer 1, and I'm going to open that, and you notice artboard, and I'm going to leave it at 100%. Now notice the dimensions are incorrect, because one of the issues with Tinkercad, especially with Inkscape, is it wants to import it as pixels, and we're going to let that happen for right now, and there's a reason for that, but let's go ahead and import it. So there's our base object, and so we've now imported this, and one of the reasons we didn't want to alter the object as we imported it is we want to or need to align the other objects. Now one of the things, I'm going to pull my ruler out here, and then I'm going to measure this, and this is at 10. I've actually in my design figured I need to be at 7.2, so I'm going to lower that down a little bit, and then I'm now going to do an import of my next layer. And so I'm going to import layer 2, and I'm going to say import. And again, I haven't messed with the scaling of this, and this is very important because we want it to be a perfect overlay. And we have a problem with layer 2. Okay, so I had to resave my layer 2 file. So let's go ahead and we'll go back at it and we'll choose layer 2 and we will open it up. And again, it'll import it. And you notice that it placed the pockets just right where we needed to place them. So one of the things we're going to do is click on them and turn them into holes. And then what we're going to do is we're going to move these up 1.2 millimeters. And so this will give us 1.2 millimeters of skin on the other side. And so this is actually the bottom side that we're looking at here. And so the other side will be the top side. And so this will actually mount on the drone's frame. Now the next thing we need to do is we need to import our final layer. Now you can do this with more than 3 layers too. I'm not sure if there's actually a limit to how many you could do. However, you just keep bringing them in. And again, you see we brought these pads in, and we're going to make the openings for this bolt heads. And then we're going to turn those to holes. And then we're going to also raise this one up, though, about 3 millimeters, because there's going to be torque on this. So this is going to pull up on the motors, or be pulled up by the motors. So we want to make sure we have a little bit extra meat on there. So we're going to go ahead and group all these together. And we now have our object, but our object is far bigger than we need it to be. So one of the things is I've covered out in other videos with this, we need to go back and first of all we're going to turn this on, and we can see here that our base is 41.852. So we're going to copy this without, and then we're going to go back in here, and then we're going to put the width here. Just do a copy and paste, and that's that. Then we're going to go back, and if you want, you can memorize them too. I'm just again showing you by copy and paste how to do it. And then we go here, and then we enter this, and boom, we have our object. So we've now, from 3 different layers in an SVG file, we've now created this object. I'm going to select this, and I'm going to turn this from gray to orange. I prefer orange. In the design, I can see the shadowing better. So here we go. So we've now designed our object. We've got it all set up. We started out in Inkscape with 3 different layers, and so you can see the 3 different layers here. And then we based it all, laid it out over a picture. One of the things I know Norbert and Zerota Labs and the Best Stooge and a couple of the other guys are going to pick on me for this is going to notice that this is a little bit offset. I had to offset this a little bit because I had to contort the, or I should say the actual scan got contorted a little bit to the end, so it kind of pulled up. So I did one print, tested it, and then had to do some adjustments. So anyways, I just wanted to explain that. But long story short, you now see how you can use multiple layers. So I tell you what, let's head back over to the bench and see what the final product looks like. Okay, welcome back. So we were on the computer, we 3D printed this model, and it came out pretty good. So I've got it sitting here on the copter. It actually goes on fairly tight. So to get it off, we have to kind of pop it off a little bit. So you might want to clean these up a little bit more, but as you can see, it pops on the copter and works good. I only have the 2 screws, have to adjust it a little bit to get the other ones in. This is probably a little bit big motor for this copter, but what I want to do is show how this works and how this goes in there. Now, this is really a good example about how using Inkscape, using layers, and then importing those layers into something like Tinkercad to create this rather complex motor mount. So hopefully you've enjoyed this edition of DIY3DTech.com. If you have, hey, give it a thumbs up. Also be sure to subscribe. Subscribe button's coming up over there. Appreciate it. Hit me up with comments below if there are other things you'd like to see me design or build, etc. I'll take a look, see if I can do it, and hey, show you how it's done. The swag shop's over there, and we'll see you in the next video. Cheers.
Please click like below and subscribe to the channel to keep up to date on all of our projects.